All right, Shalom. First and foremost, as always, I want to give all the praise, all the honor, and all the glory to Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahawashi, Ba'ashem Harakakwadash, and of course, as always, double honors to our apostles and our elders that rule well at Great Millstone. Salutations to all you sincere Akim that are preaching this word in all truth and sincerity. All right, so what you see here on the screen is the NATO summit day 2 in Ankara, Turkey. And these Edomites are gathering together to discuss, the future of NATO. And who is aligned with, that alliance of NATO is the EU. All right, the European Union, which they all came together, all right, NATO and the EU, to form what is known in the scriptures as the beast, all right, a military alliance of these Edomite countries. Okay, so that they would, have somewhat of a peace and military alliance between them. Okay, but right now, you got certain members of NATO and the EU that are looking at other members, sideways, and that one member that they're all looking at, or the majority of them are looking at sideways, is America. And the country that they're here discussing, is Turkey. Now, Turkey's going to be, a major reason why, NATO disbands, or NATO rejects, giving benefits to America. Because NATO is a power, Slovakia, because Turkey is a powerful, country within, NATO, within, the beast. And right now, you see the tension of the world with those small hats in our land that call themselves Jews and are not. Okay, coming against Iran, Syria, Palestine, Hezbollah, and these other, Islamic states, Muslim, countries. And Turkey is an Islamic or Muslim country. The number one religion of Turkey is Islam. So that already is causing, divisions between, Turkey, NATO, Israel, and America. Because Israel is backed by America. And according to that religion, Turkey is seeing this as an attack on their beliefs. And so they're questioning America. They're coming against America because America is allowing and backing Israel. So let's get into these scriptures. This is 2nd Ezra 15 and verse 20. Behold, saith Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahawashi, I will call together all the kings of the earth to reverence me, which are from the rising of the sun Okay, they say the sun rises in the east and it sets in the west. It says from the south, from the east in Libanus, to turn themselves one against another and repay the things that they have done to them. So all these nations, okay, they're all going to go to war against one another. Okay, Yahawashi is going to put it in their spirit. That's what it means. It's going to cause all the kings of the earth to reverence him. Because these Edomites ain't going to reverence Yahawashi. They're not going to bow down and worship our power. Okay, keep the law, statutes, and commandments. They're not going to do that. So simply what it means by they're going to reverence the Lord is that according to prophecy, okay, they're going to fall in place. They're going to go to war against each other. And they're going to repay themselves for what they've done to the children of Israel. It says, like as they do yet this day unto my chosen, so will I do also, and recompense in their bosom. Thus saith the Lord, power, Yahawashi. Another word for recompense, okay, is payback. All right, vengeance. So what we're witnessing, okay, is, NATO, the EU, starting to have a schism within themselves. And eventually what that's going to lead to is, the final prophecy of them shooting missiles on America, man. So this is Joel chapter 3 in verse 12. It reads, let the heathen be wakened and come up to the valley of Jehoshaphat, which, that's just south of Turkey. The valley of Jehoshaphat, or the valley of decision, is right there in the Middle East, the Fertile Crescent. It says, for there will I sit to judge all the heathen round about. Because all these nations are going to gather there for the Battle of Armageddon. And, the ultimate heathen, okay, is Esau, the self-proclaimed white man. Which those Turks, those Turkish people, they're Edomites. All right, these countries of NATO and the EU, those are Edomites. America is governed and ran by Edomites. The people in our land today, those are Edomites. Okay, the Russians, those are Edomites. I just found out today that the people of Ukraine, okay, they're small hats, all right? They're so-called Jews, which is wild, man. So these heathen, they're being awakened. Okay, the Lord is putting it in the minds of, the lesser heathen, such as these Arabs, these Middle Eastern people, so-called Chinese, Japanese, to get ready, man, to be awakened, to be prepared militarily, because what just took place over the Philippines is Moab, the so-called Chinese, let off of ICBM. Because who's backing the Philippines is America, and vice versa. You got Japan that's, linked up with America, and you got China, which they are partners, they are allies with Russia. So as this thing really picks up, you know, Russia's gonna get involved, China's gonna get involved, NATO and the EU, they're all gonna gather to the Middle East, okay, to duke it out. And that's where the Lord is gonna judge them. And as that's taking place, they're all going to turn that eye toward America to shoot nukes at this place. It says, put ye in the sickle, for the harvest is ripe. Come, get you down, for the press is full. The fats overflow, for their wickedness is great. We're at that time. The Lord is He's just gonna open up on the world, man. Okay, it says the harvest is ripe, man. The press is full. You had these Edomites came out and spoke about the American Edomites. These top military generals came out and said, the current war in the Middle East taking place between Israel and Iran is to usher in the return, and I'm going to say it in verbatim. They said to usher in the return of Jesus Christ. Okay? To prepare and immense the Battle of Armageddon. Okay? And the true name and image of the Lord, all right, his true name is Yahawashi. And his true depiction is that of a so-called African American man, a so-called Negro, a dark-skinned, okay, what you would call a so-called black man. Okay. Jesus Christ is not his name. Okay. That long-haired, pale man hanging on the cross, that is not the Lord. That is not the true image, the true identity of the Lord. When you read the scriptures, it tells you what the Lord looks like. Okay? Revelation chapter 1, which is the revelation of Yahawashi. All right? But what they are saying is the truth, that, these wars going on in the Middle East right now are to immense the Battle of Armageddon. And the Lord, the Messiah, will return in the midst of it. Okay? To destroy these nations. Let's get that. This is 2 Ezra chapter 13 and verse 1. And it came to pass, after 7 days, I dreamed a dream by night. And lo, there arose a wind from the sea, that it moved all the waves thereof. And this sea that it's talking about is it's talking about the sky. Okay. Talking about, in the morning, during the day when you look up and the sky is blue. Okay, that's the sea that it's referring to. And when it says that it moved all the waves thereof, that's talking about the Lord coming through the ripping through the ozone. Okay, the firmament. All right, the stratosphere, atmosphere. Okay, those waves is going to be the Lord ripping through, coming into our dimension, coming into our planet. And it's going to be like waves, like a ripple effect as he's coming in. It says, and I beheld, and lo, that man waxed strong with the thousands of heaven. See, so it calls the Lord a man. It's talking about a man. Men have bodies. Men have flesh. Fingers, toes, eyes, hair. And the thousands of heaven is referring to the angels. And when he had turned his countenance to look, all the things trembled that were seen under him, meaning the creation. All right. Animals. Of course, first and foremost, people, especially the heathen, 2/3 of our people, and even, us of the hopeful elect, we're going to be in somewhat of an awe type fear because the Lord is an austere man. Okay? And he is greatly to be feared. Okay, now we're not going to fear in the sense like you people. We're going to fear in the hope that we're right. Okay? But at the same time, we're going to be ecstatic knowing that this is the end of this captivity. Okay, but you people that don't know the Lord, that don't have faith in the Lord, you're going to be in shambles of fear, terrors. We're preparing our minds right now for the return of the Lord because it's going to be dreadful. Okay? It says, whensoever the voice went out of his mouth, all they burned that heard his voice, like as the earth faileth when it filleth the fire. And if you're hearing that voice come out of the chariot, you will be burned. Because simultaneously, as that voice is going out, the missiles are going to be flying at America, and the elect will be getting beamed up into those so-called UFOs. So if you're hearing that voice from outside of the chariots, okay, you will be getting fried. It says, and after this I beheld, and lo, there was gathered together a multitude of men out of number from the four winds of the heaven to subdue the man that came out of the sea. That's all the militaries of the world. Okay. They're going to stop fighting one another and attempt to fight against the Lord. It says, but I beheld, and lo, he had graved himself a great mountain and flew up upon it. But I would have seen the region or place whereout the hill was graven, and I could not, because these spaceships are going to cover the whole sky. And the Lord's chariot, his so-called UFO, is going to be the biggest one. NASA had images years ago. I'll show. All right, this isn't the exact one I was looking for, but that's, what they can look like. Okay? They could change shapes, forms, all right, colors. Okay? Now, the one I was looking for, I'm going to see if I can find it again. All right, I found it. This was it right here. Okay. 3,000-mile wide UFO. Okay. So everything we've been telling you out of the scriptures, the Holy Bible, is correct, man. It said, but I would have seen the region or place whereout the hill was graven, and I could not. And after this I beheld, and lo, all they which were gathered together to subdue him were sore afraid, and yet durst fight. So they're going to be terrified, but they will attempt to fight against the Lord. He's going to put that spirit on them. And lo, as he saw the violence of the multitude that came, he neither lifted up his hand, nor held sword, nor any instrument of war. But only I saw that he had sent out of his mouth, as it had been a blast of fire, and out of his lips a flaming breath, and out of his tongue he cast out sparks and tempests. So these chariots, these so-called UFOs, they gonna come in their form, and they ain't gonna look like, of course they're gonna be dreadful, but like Esau's carnal weapons, he got tanks where you could see the big old barrel on the tank that fires a projectile, or his spacecrafts, his fighter jets. They'll have missiles attached to them. These vehicles, they ain't gonna come with no carnal weapons on them like that. Okay? That's what it means by the Lord didn't lift up sword or any instrument of war. These vehicles are going to be, in their majestic form, but they ain't going to have no carnal weapon strapped to it. They're just going to open up and shoot lasers, man. Like Independence Day, like anything that shows you images of aggressive UFOs, then things come in a plane form, and then they just open up and shoot a beam. They just open up and let a weapon out. But it's not a weapon that that's just on and mounted like Esau. It says, and they were all mixed together, the blast of fire, the flaming breath, and the great tempest, and fell with violence upon the multitude which was prepared to fight, and burned them up every one, so that upon a sudden of an innumerable multitude, nothing was to be perceived, but only dust and smell of smoke. When I saw this, I was afraid. Afterward saw I the same man come down from the mountain, and call unto him another peaceable multitude. And so, that's talking about the Lord. All right. Eventually coming down off the chariot, and him and the elect. Okay? Because that's the only way you're going to be saved up out of America, which is Babylon the Great. That's the only way. Because nukes are going to be shot on this place, man. Natural disasters, famines, plagues. Just the other day in the Midwest, in some of the East Coast, there's a parasite going around that is giving people, weeks of diarrhea, man. There's all types of these plagues and pestilences, bacterias that are getting unleashed. We're in the days of vengeance, man, days of judgment. All right? But prophecy will be fulfilled. It's being fulfilled before our very eyes. We're in a time of speaking, man. Okay? We're in the time where, the men of the Lord are not going to be backed, into a corner anymore. Okay? The truth is going out. And, this alliance between these Edomites is going to crumble. They're going to go to war, all right, along with all the other nations. It's going to be a global nuclear war. And they're eventually going to shoot missiles on America and Israel, the land of Israel. And the Lord's going to return to take down their militaries, man, to destroy their militaries. Okay? To destroy the fighting force of them. And when he comes down, okay, we will subdue the remaining people of the nations. Put them in captivity. All right? So with that, all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahawashi, Ba'ashem Rakakwadash. And of course, as always, double honors to our apostles and our elders that rule well at Great Millstone. Shalom to the hopeful elect.